So Lee was fascinated in the back, the small of the back and the top of the bum.
Mm.
But obviously also it has considerable impact from the front.
Yes. Yeah.
But that was probably, it's the Bumster again, and that was probably the single most influential piece of clothing that Lee created, but also from that period across the board.
Right.
Because after that, trousers were flat-fronted and waistlines dropped.
Right.
Everywhere.
Right.
You know, Tom Ford's Gucci, his early Gucci that everybody went crazy about, was a hipster, was a low-slung, and there's no doubt that Lee brought that in and that everybody else sanitized it.
Yeah.
But it changed, you know, because it elongates the top half and it exposes this part of the body, I mean, not as much as Lee did, but to a certain degree, certainly the curve of the hip, in a way that it hadn't been exposed for a very long time. So it was really influential, and it's powerfully erotic, obviously.
I mean, this is one of my other direct references. Photographically, was to Hans Bellmer.
Okay,
which is
Broken
sort of,
Doll.
Yeah, which is sort of something that another reference that Lee had throughout. And again, a chap who had quite a lot of controversy in his life, as I believe. Yeah,
because aren't some of them you can see they're opened up and you can see the entrails? Am I making that up?
I haven't heard that. But
I'm not sure. I don't know enough about Hans Bellmer, but I know that. Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of a kind of doll and distortion, and a child and distortion, and it's definitely pushing buttons, and it's pushing Lee's kind of buttons.
But there's no paedophilia or no trace of any love of childhood in Lee's work. No exaggeration of sexuality in
absolutely
children.
Not. He's not interested.
Doesn't touch it at all.
No, it's not something he went near. Although he talked about the beauty of women in this case in particular, just as they are becoming women, moving, but he in a completely romantic and intrusive way. I mean, that is beautiful, isn't it?
Sure, well, all stages of human life are beautiful.
Yeah. Yes. But he was interested in, and there was that point, you know, the girl who lived in the tree, but also there was that shoot in another where he did shoot little girls.
Right.
In a collection, but it was his niece, and it was Janet's daughter, and it was, I think it might have been Jürgen's daughter, I'm not sure, but they were all friends, children. Yeah. So he was interested in it, but not in a sexualized way at all.
But that was Bellmer's, excuse me, I think Bellmer's area of interest was childhood, I think. I'm not
which would make it very, well, I think so too. I mean, they're dolls, which suggests anyway on one level I'm not an expert either.
No, I'm not an expert on Bellmer.
But no, these women were women.
Yeah, but I guess that's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
Is unlike Bellmer, where Bellmer produced images of very little girls or girls that are, early teens or whatever it would be, or younger in his art. Lee doesn't seem to do that. The images of his women aren't children.
No.
So
he was interested in women, and he was interested in women as mothers.
Right.
He once said to me, "Are you going to have a baby?" And I said, "I don't know." And he said, "How can you not?" He actually said, "How can you think that if you can have a baby, you might not have a baby when that is half of what being a woman's about?" When you think back, that's kind of an amazing thing for him.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't, because funny enough, I've a picture somewhere of him standing next to Anna Whiting, who was pregnant.
Yeah.
Sam Gainsbury, who was pregnant.
Yeah.
Kate England, who was pregnant.
I mean, everyone used to drive
Janet,
him mad. It was like, how dare they be pregnant, because they should be working for me. However, he really knew the importance and I think loved the state of motherhood.
Right.
And I mean, that's exactly what he said to me, because I was ambivalent and, did it quite late, and I was ambivalent, and he was just like, that's pathetic. How can you be ambivalent? And then he corrected himself, because he was, that actually isn't, that's an interesting example of his sensitivity, because he said, well, if you can, because I think he maybe then thought, well, maybe she can't. I kind of slightly panicked him, but he was like, well, if you can, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Which surprised, he always surprised me. He surprised everyone, didn't he?
Yeah.
He never, that Lee always added to his. I think one of the reasons for me as a writer, the only person I have ever gone back to again and again and again to the point of obsession is Lee, and because there was always something new to learn from him.
Yeah.
He always revealed something else about himself. He never stayed the same.
Do you think he saw himself as a child?
Well, no, I think
enormously strong relationship with Mum. So that relationship is still...
I think I certainly saw a childlike side to him, a naivety and a childlike side to him. But because and I think he found this quite difficult. Once the company turned into a company, instead of, them just doing these amazing things for no money, he felt a huge sense of responsibility for his staff.
Right.
And, he used to say, and I used to think, oh God, you're being a bit whiny, moany. He was quite tough on moaners himself. Right? And I shouldn't have thought that. He used to say it's like a prison and, I can't stop because so many people rely on me.
Yeah.
But I think that was a very real concern for him. He just felt trapped by... I think the thing with Lee is that he perhaps thought money would make things easier, and then he discovered it didn't.
No.
And that was probably very painful. And not only did it not make things better, it tied him into something that he perhaps didn't want to be tied into.
Yeah.
But couldn't find a way out of.
Yeah. I remember, I can't remember if it was a conversation with him or who, but there was some thought that he would stop. He would open a small atelier in Mayfair or somewhere.
I think that's what he would have.
And create dresses for the women he wanted.
Yeah, I remember
wanted to dress.
having that conversation with him too.
Yeah. So it's sort of, he moved to Mayfair in what?
2007 maybe, or 8? I don't know. So he could be close to the Queen when he got his OBE. The knighthood, that's what he said.
Right.
He wants to be close to the Queen. So sweet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was towards the end of the first decade of the new millennium that he moved there. But, he was a bit, once you've got a name and a company and budgets and staff, I think it probably is quite difficult.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
As soon as you start making money, you kind of need to make more money, even just personally. It's a trap. And also Lee was really upset after the crash, the 2008 crash. He was just like, I've been working for years. I've created a British fashion house, and now it's all falling apart because of bankers behaving like idiots. He minded about that.
Right.
That's what the Horn of Plenty was about. That's what that rubbish tip and the idea of recycling was. It was railing against that. He felt a really strong sense of injustice, political and financial injustice, because of what had happened. Because he did work really hard.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether, perhaps he would have liked somebody to allow him to be like a child.
Yeah.
Maybe that would have been. I think Lee did want to be looked after. But it was very difficult to look after Lee. His role was almost patriarchal in the studio, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was. He was the boss, and there was never any question about it.
But that, he dealt with things in a very simplistic way often, which is quite childlike.
Yeah.
It's either this or that. It's quite a sort of...
Well, maybe also, there is a slight... When you're young and suddenly you're famous, there's a kind of... You almost stop there because you stop having to do things for yourself in the same way.
Yeah.
So there was that element.
Yeah.
But I thought the way he was with his team, the kind of release of the really kind of potty humour, what's it called? The release from the kind of silly humour, the kind of almost juvenile humour. I used that word once. He was really offended, and he asked me not to use it. That aside, I think he was very grown up in the way he looked after his team and he led his team.
Right.
He was sometimes a bit drunk on life or anything else, but he was the boss.
Yeah.
I felt that he was.
Yeah, there's no.
Yeah, actually, and now I think about that, that's interesting, because if someone was upset, Lee really went out of his way to take care of them.
Right.
And the terrible thing is that I think perhaps everybody who was around him didn't realise, and I think everybody feels, probably you included, me included, we should have taken care of him.
But very hard to know. He was such a robust character.
He took care of us.
Yeah, it was when he killed himself, I just got the feeling that he was experimenting. He was playing. It wasn't 15 minutes later it would have changed his mind.
Well, 15 minutes later Lee always changed his mind.
Yeah.
So that's maybe, I mean, it's all a tragedy, but that maybe, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't see a sort of progression towards a state of more and more withdrawn, more and more. You know, I spoke to him on the phone the week before, and I knew he was upset because his mother had died. You know, but I didn't. He seemed quite sort of.
But in
there wasn't a sort of. I mean, if you look at the whole career and the images I created,
then you can see, can't
you? You see, a man wanting to be portrayed hanging in a cell by his own flesh, with his head being blown to smithereens.
I know.
You know, they're
it's all there.
It's all there when you then, with the benefit of hindsight, benefit's not the right word, but with the knowledge brought on by hindsight, and you see, you know, lots of moments of saying, I can't deal with this. But I guess we're all in the same situation. It's a fucking hard business to deal with. Yeah. So it was more a reflection of how we all felt, I guess.
Absolutely, which is probably, actually, that's really true. But I think Lee was extremely damaged, and I think he worked really hard not to allow that to affect him. That was the whole thing, wasn't it? I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this happen. I'm going to make something happen. I'm going to make people feel, and you know, that damage coupled with the way he did look after people who were having a tough time in quite an extreme way, actually. Yeah. I guess they could have been signifiers.
Yeah.
But you just don't think like that, because as you say, the overall thing was that he was incredibly robust. He took care of everybody else.
Yeah.
Even when he was off the rails, we knew why he was off the rails.
Yeah, yeah.
And we didn't think it was, I don't think anybody was really looking at it as a more profound and scarred thing, and I regret that massively, actually.
Yeah.
But we didn't know.
No, but as I said,
But I think, yes, changing his mind, absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
He played with, I don't know if it's awful to say it, but he played with that imagery and that idea, as you say, right from the beginning.
Yeah.
But as you also say, perhaps that was, saying something that we missed.